Hi YouTube, this is Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. Hope you're doing well. Summer's coming to an end soon, but so make the most of it. We had a lovely picnic in our community garden the other day, and my plants are doing wonderfully well. I probably already mentioned them, but I'll mention them again because they're like little children. But being my first garden, I had two wonderful tomato plants and two wonderful tomatillo plants, and I had two wonderful pepper plants, and they're still wonderful, but one of them sadly fell over. It looks like the base was gnawed by something terrible, and it's very wilted now. We don't know if it's going to make it or not. It's very sad, but it had been bearing fruit, started to, so we'll see. Had some very curious things to share with you today about the great Thelonious Monk and one of his tunes, Well You Needn't, and about jazz harmonies and tritone substitutions, and something I don't think you've ever heard before, ever, but I will share it with you about tritone substitutions. And also going to maybe share with you a little piece of personal information. In June, unfortunately, I got COVID. My first time I ever got COVID. It was not fun. And in the process, the COVID also gave me a condition that left my left hand, the pinky and ring finger of my left hand, quite numb, and the arm painful. It affected a nerve in my arm called the ulnar nerve, which controls the pinky and half of the ring finger. And it is getting better. So I think it's getting better. I have hope. It's not, I don't think it's getting worse. And I might share with you some of the adventures that I've had with that, and particularly the physical therapy that I've had. There are a lot of, I'm working with a wonderful physical therapist that I've worked with in the past. And I think the basic message is that if you have a physical malady of some kind like that, and physical therapy is indicated, in my case, kind of just sucking it up and doing the physical therapy, even though you think it might make it worse, because it doesn't. I mean, obviously you don't continue to do if it makes it worse, but I do think that ultimately it makes it better. Over the years, I've had a lot of contact with a lot of different physical therapists and a whole variety of situations, and I've just become very impressed with the whole field. And I wish I had learned all this stuff years ago, because I think it would have made made me healthier, made my playing better. I think there are some wonderful exercises to do as a pianist, in particular. I'll share one quick thing with you. You'll find these on YouTube, but one is called a nerve glide. And it works on the nerves. And what you do is you kind of hold your hand out to the side. You probably can't. Probably can't. See if I can do it. But you hold your hand out to the side like that, and you kind of twist, and then you almost like you make glasses, like little glasses, and that's called a nerve glide. And that doing that like 10 times, that apparently helps stretch and exercise the nerve in the ulnar nerve. And I guess there are other exercises that are specific to different nerves. There's also an interesting exercise where you kind of it's like being a waiter, and you kind of put your hand out and you kind of move towards and away like that. That's kind of an interesting exercise. And then there's another exercise where you're kind of praying, you sort of move your hands like this, and that also helps the hand. And then there's this. That's very helpful. Actually, getting the thumb, you could go right against a wall. You got to make sure you don't want to be angled like that, but you can go right against a wall and stretch like that, and then also stretch like this. That's a pretty good stretch for you pianists out there. We really got to take care of our bodies. We're athletes, and there are a lot of important exercises. You can also get these foam bars, and if you can squeeze them, kind of bend them this way, and then you can also hold them from underneath and bend them up that way. And those are exercises people do for kind of tennis elbow and things of that nature. They're quite good. And there are a lot of, you've probably seen these bands, these stretchy bands that people use. There's lots of exercises that one can do. I'm not a physical therapist, so, but I think I've gotten quite a repertoire of exercises now. I mean, I must have at least a couple dozen different exercises and various kinds of little pieces of exercise equipment that I put around the house, and you kind of just do them throughout the day. Even do them when you get up. Do them even before you even get out of bed. There's exercises you can do, so it doesn't become burdensome. You don't have to sit there and like carve out an entire hour. You do a little bit here and then rest, a little bit there and rest, and you don't have to do a lot of repetitions either necessarily. Also, like sometimes they'll say, well, do 3 sets of 10. Well, if you do 2 sets of 15, it might be as good or better, just depending on what your therapist says. In my case, it was. I kind of, they pick these arbitrary numbers like 10, right? But I kind of felt like in some certain cases, I felt better when I did 12 or 15, Also, there are exercises you can do with hand weights, where you just sort of sit next to a table and have your hand hang off and have a weight and kind of move it up and down like that, or like this, or possibly like this. All of those are very helpful. And the weight is helpful, not so much to build up muscle, although I presume it does that, but it just helps you just neurologically, psychologically, to have something that to push off of, to counter off of it, and it helps you to pace yourself. It's so the weight functions in a variety of ways, I think, other than just building up strength. And I particularly like kettlebells for other things, but there are kettlebell exercises you can do, or what I'm talking about right now is just simply a little dumbbell, a little barbell. I like the lighter ones. So, I don't know, just wanted to let you know about that. But I haven't been able to play my gig, my regular gig, unfortunately. But I will be playing first Friday of September. And I may not be 100%, I might not even be 50%. But I don't think I'm going to risk necessarily risk injuring myself. I think I'll just take it easy, and I can play with some other fingers, and I have to be careful of how I sit. Anyone can get this condition, of course. It's called cubital tunnel syndrome, or cubital entrapment. So the cubital is like your elbow, your funny bone on your elbow, and the nerve kind of runs all the way up like that. And what happens in certain instances, it becomes kind of trapped. I might have been predisposed to it. If you sleep in like a fetal position, or you lean on your elbows, you could be set up for it. But I'm certain that I got it right when I got COVID. And I also had some blood drawn right there. And it didn't feel right. It felt like really weird and nasty. And I thought that in some way maybe I got some kind of injury at that time so maybe there was a nexus of things happening. I don't really know precisely. But again, I'm hoping that it gets better. It seems like it's not getting worse and it's headed in the right direction. So we'll take some time. So you'll bear with me. But that's why I haven't been playing a lot too. But I am going to do some playing today because I just kind of feel like playing. I sort of miss it. By the way, I did, despite my curmudgeonly attitude, I did play on some of these pianos they have around town. It's called Push Press Play, I think, and they have a piano outside at near Nordstrom's, near there's a town square, kind of near the Central Library. A little pink piano. That was fun. That was fun to play on, and I know they have them in other places in town. I'm not sure where they are. So let's take a look at this. Here, let me play this little tune for you. So we might have even talked about this before, but you guys know that? Now, Now, bridge. I'm playing kind of just a stripped down version of the tune. You can find that in your friendly reel book or anywhere online. You know, well, you needn't. It's typically played in F. It's all dominant chords, and you know, it's kind of fascinating. Of all the chords that we use, that we learn in jazz, I think the dominant 7 chord is probably the most important, and which is kind of backwards in the sense that in most music that we play, and particularly classical music, the dominant chord is maybe the second most important. So you usually have, you know, tonic, dominant, tonic, but this song starts with a dominant chord, and that's indicative of jazz. That's just of all the things I can think of harmonically, to start a song with a dominant chord is pretty crazy, but we do it. And when I play the chord, I like to play in this part of the piano, this kind of tenor baritone range, and actually it's more like baritone, but I like to use these shell voicings. So I don't play, this is F, A, C, E flat. I don't play all the notes together. I could. On a real piano, you can kind of get away with that. On electric piano, I don't think it's going to sound very good. But I just play the pinky and thumb. I just play the F and the E flat together. And then the other notes of the chord, the A is played up here, and these sounds, just 2 notes. So F7, F sharp 7, going back and forth. G7, A flat 7, A7, B flat 7, B7. It's all half steps. It's all chromatic. Right. Interestingly enough, too, the highest chord is a B, and that's the tritone. Tritone meaning 3 whole steps. And there's this wonderful little rule that we learn in music and jazz, that if you have a dominant chord, F7, you could substitute that chord for another dominant chord a tritone away. So you could substitute the chord B7 for the chord F7, right? And isn't that interesting? Root position, second inversion, B7. It's kind of eerie, you know, but it's sort of like a hall of musical mirrors. It's like an altered universe. I don't know. So when people talk about chord substitutions, that's one of the things they're talking about, taking a chord that you typically play and substituting another chord for it. And typically, in the case of dominant chords, you can do that. And usually, more often than not, you could maintain, let's say, the same bass note like an F, you know, and perhaps play the B up here. If you incorporate those 2 ideas, you actually end up with a very interesting chord. If I play F7 here, and then I add the notes of the B7 chord, which also has this special note, this G sharp, this 13, you get this. And that together is an interesting chord. It's an F7 sharp 9 sharp 5. So it has some alterations in it and extended alterations, the sharp 9 and, you know, the sharp 5. But the way I think of it is it's really the same chord, just a tritone apart, and you kind of merge them together, okay? Now, I'm going to show you something very interesting about this song that I kind of discovered, and I thought it would be fun. If you play the song over and over and over again, the same song for many years, and you know, after a while, you kind of want to explore other options, right? So here's an interesting option. Listen to this, right? Here's F7, right? I'm starting on the B, da-dum. The melody notes are part of the chord. They're just an F major triad in an inversion. They're very benign, very, consonant notes in the chord. But I start on the B, and typically we'd think of that B as just kind of like it's a pickup. It's almost like a throwaway. It's a non-harmonic tone. It doesn't last very long. But I think it's a window into the song. When I start a piece of music, I conceptually I think of the song as already being played, or already in the state of being played. So it's like kind of like taking an electric lamp and plugging it into the wall. There's already electricity in the wall, and the light goes on, right? So if I start playing, this song is already going on, and it's going on in effect 2 keys at the same time. The way I hear it in F and I hear it in B, kind of, and it's kind of going on. Nobody starts it like that, really. But you could flesh out that harmony. B7, and then this chord, typically that would be F sharp 7. Right. I could use the tritone substitution. Hear the difference? C7. That's C7, C, E, G, B flat. This is C, E, let me do C sharp, E, F sharp, A sharp. And then if I keep the C in the bass, that's quite interesting. That's a C chord. That's a C7 with a flat 5. That's, again, kind of like splitting the difference between the F sharp 7. I have elements of the F sharp 7, the E, F sharp, A sharp, and I have elements of the C chord, C, E. I'm going to call this, instead of F sharp, G flat, and instead of this, I'm going to call it A sharp, I'm going to call it B flat. Okay, I'm going to spell it differently just to, so it goes along with the C chord better, but very, very closely related. Now, if typically when we do tritone substitutions, we think of doing them in the right hand, but this is actually changing the whole premise of the tune. So I'm going to use tritone substitutions for every single chord. Instead of starting on F, which is a very kind of stable, placid sort of way to do it, I'm going to start on the B. C. Does that sound interesting? Back to F. Now, the bridge of the tune would typically go to G. All right, but why not consider a tritone substitution here? Instead of G, 3 whole steps up, C sharp or D flat 7. That's interesting. D7, going up chromatically. That's B7. That completely changes the whole tune. It just turns it inside out. I'm sure somebody somewhere is doing this, but I typically don't hear it. Now, if you listen to a lot of, so this was written by Thelonious Monk, and Thelonious Monk, of all the guys in jazz that have come along, he is inarguably, the word is inarguably, not arguably, inarguably the most iconoclastic of all the composers. I mean, he just really just stands out on his own like a sore thumb, to the point where I've heard people say, prominent people, I've heard Harold Mayburn say to me that there are guys that don't even play Monk's tunes because his personality is stamped on it so strongly that, you know, it's very hard to get out from under that you know, personality of his, you know, and actually do something that's original, or to, you know, play something of your own. But and most of his tunes they're very kind of angular, and there's a lot of chromaticism in it. But the thing I've noticed is that he's very hard to nail down, harder than someone, say, Duke Ellington. You know, you have Take the A Train. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that that's Take the A Train. But we're not all in agreement about what Well You Needn't is. Some people probably, rather than playing the G7 in the bridge, they probably play the D flat. You know? Now I'm playing different types of voicings there, you know, so you could play your kind of open and closed 13th voicings, or sharp 9 voicings, or whatever it is you're playing. But that's the fun of playing jazz. And so your ear doesn't get tired of hearing the same thing, the same harmonies over and over again. Even if, you don't have to do all of it that way, right? But what if you did some of it that way, you know? Or what if you just practiced it that way, and then you decided, well, when you went to play it, you just played it the way everybody plays it. But it's almost like working out. You know, to use the example of working out, it's like, or take a baseball analogy of, you know, someone who's going to get up to bat, and typically they're waiting on deck, and they're swinging a bat, but they're swinging 2 bats, or maybe 3 bats, but 2 bats, or there's a weight on their bat, right? So when they get up to the plate, the bat feels light, and then they swing faster. It's the same kind of thing when you're practicing. You know, you can practice things that you might not necessarily use in performance, but it helps you psychologically. It helps you prepare so that when you actually play the tune straight, it's easier. So it's another reason to kind of challenge yourself in that manner, you know. Let's give that a go. So again, starting the tune. Now, I'm going to point out a phrasing thing, little phrasing thing. Everybody does this. They accent the top note, right? You hear that in jazz all the time. It's actually not that musical, really. It's kind of annoying, and it kind of kills the phrase. And it's probably better musically, ultimately, to maybe start louder and get softer, and hold down the notes, especially on the piano. You know, if you try to force sound out of each individual note, you're going to have a losing battle. But you can use, since it's all part of the same chord, you can hold them all down, and they'll work for you. You know, if I hold these notes down, C, F, A, if I hold them down on the keyboard and I play the C up here, I don't know if you can hear that, but the other notes in the chord are sounding so sympathetically. So, you know, that's something an electronic instrument really can't do. So you could also think about some creative fingerings. You know, you could use your left hand to start, or hold down the first note instead of going, right? Why not make it longer? That sounds different. You can let go of it later. Hold it a little bit longer instead of just holding with the pedal. That's all with the pedal. That's too much. Different sound. Cross. You could cross. Hold all these down. Right? For those classical fans out there who want to write an arrangement, you know, it could be a very, very interesting way to flesh out the tune. Again, why do people improvise? I mean, we improvise mainly to expound on the tune, right? The tune has a lot of great potential in it, and it's untapped potential. And so, the tune itself, that we're used to hearing, it's a stepping off point Just like when a painter makes a painting, Picasso paints a bowl of fruit, or Braque or Monet or whatever. They really don't care about the fruit. That's not the point. The point isn't like a Safeway ad to sell fruit. Okay, it's an excuse to experience the medium, and to experience how their subconscious, because this is all subconscious, right? All the stuff we do is subconscious. It is not conscious. There's no way you can do any of this consciously. These are ways that we access worlds that are inside ourselves, right? That ordinarily would go unheard and unseen. But it's an excuse to interact with light and color and pigment and express something greater than the sum of its parts, right? That's really what art is. The difference between art and craft equals the sum of its parts, and art is greater than the sum of its parts. There's something else. There's something else that kind of just reaches beyond. So sorry. Left-hand bass. F. Bridge. Now, I'm playing this note here, D flat, that's the tritone. I mean, that's the whole point. Monk is intimating. He's kind of foreshadowing, or however you want to, this tritone idea. So instead of, you can do, and notice, if I start on D flat, typically I'd go G, A flat, A, B flat, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I start on D flat, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the top chord is the F chord. It's just turns it on its head. Isn't that fun? I thought so. Okay, that's enough. I gotta go. Good to see you guys. Hope to see you next time. Until we meet again, this is Jonathan Eder at the Piano Lesson. Au revoir.